man, I can't unsee it. Guys, a brand new world has come to the Antiverse, our ant loom, which is home to various kingdoms of ants, death sprites, a goddess, civilians of wood, aquatic friends, gladiators, and more. But today, AC family, we meet some creatures I've never before featured on this channel, but am so excited for you to meet. You will be spellbound as we welcome to the channel a brand new cast. Literally a cast, as we create a spectacular haven and semi-aquatic world for our brand new colony of vampire crabs. And what I ended up seeing once the vampire crabs were all moved into the world we fashioned for them was something I could not unsee. You won't want to miss this awe-inspiring episode as we create a kingdom for vampire crabs here on the AntsCanada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. Two long fuzzy black and pink fingers waved around carefully, laying down strands of silk onto the surface of succulents, which adorn the shrine of our two-headed goddess of the Antiverse, Azula. And my, has she been busy. The Arachno Sanctorum, her home, is now blanketed in her sacred silk, which took months to construct. Like a lining of holy carpet, this webbing helps Azula feel much more comfortable and protected, as she can better feel if prey or predators approach. Her silk is her instant connection to the world around her lair, and it's just beautiful to look at. Wouldn't you say? Now, the reason she's been extra eager to lay down thicker layers of webbing is because she's preparing for her next molt, which I'm excited about because see that double face she has? The upper face is a mask, which resulted in a faulty shed. It hasn't affected her life, but I hope and expect with this next molt, she'll be able to get rid of the mask and be a normal one-faced green bottle blue tarantula. Let's hope everything works out this time around for the beloved goddess of the Antiverse. But little did our sacred goddess Azula know, today she'd be joined by a new team of cherubs, which would share the grand continental shelf on which she lived. Here, just below the Selva de Fuego, you'll find two ghost worlds, which have grown stagnant. They used to be the Shire, home to a colony of Asian bullet ants called the Black Panthers, which have long passed, since the colony didn't have any unrelated males to mate with, and the Grove, home to carpenter ants, which were moved out and joined with another colony of the same species into a hybrid nest. Today, the Shire and the Grove have been converted to special gardens temporarily. See these containers, AC family? Each of them contain clumps of moss and colonies of springtails, which I'm trying to grow and culture for inclusion in future worlds we create. And it just so happens, guys, today's the day I'll be needing some of both. AC family, the moment you've all been waiting for. Today we welcome a new colony to sit beside our goddess. The time has come to meet our new colony of vampire cherubs. AC family, behold, our newest cast of vampire crabs. In these containment units are a colony of 21 of the most stunning crabs ever. I can't wait to show you. Let's open one of the containers and have a closer look at the crabs. Guys, these crabs, known commonly as vampire crabs or carnival crabs, are native to Indonesia. They've actually long been part of the aquarium hobby for a long time, even back when scientists still hadn't yet officially discovered them in the wild, nor described their species. They live in large colonies in the wild, are generally non-aggressive to one another, and inhabit tropical forests around bodies of fresh water. They're scavengers, so they'll eat pretty much anything you give them. Now, a group of crabs is called a cast, and I find this cast of vampire crabs to be so cute and quite energetic. It seems they're totally ready to move into a terrarium, which brings us to what we do best. it was time to assume our role as creator of worlds and create a brand new island haven for this cast of gorgeous vampire crabs. Behold, an empty glass half tank. You may notice the blobs of silicone at the back. And well, it's because for those of you who feel this tank looks familiar, you're right, as it's the glass receptacle that held the Hacienda del Dorado's old golden springs. Remember that? So I went in and first added a mat of black filter foam, then a second layer. I then went in to place a natural background which mimicked roots of a tree stump. This would help give our new world a nice natural feel. Now that the background was set, I cut the second layer of foam to give more dimension to what would become the land area of our new world. I then went in to place and arrange some decorative rocks all around the land area. These rocks would function to keep the majority of the substrate contained and from falling into our water area. You see, this was going to be a paludarium, meaning a part land, part water habitat for our crabs. Once the rocks were arranged, I poured in some coarse gravel to line the bottom of the water area. You'll see why I chose white gravel later. I spread the gravel all around the water area and in pockets around the rocks. When terrascaping, I never really know what the finished world will look like, but I have a rough mental plan and just improvise as I go along. Next, I arranged my plants in the areas I felt they might look good, then planted them in the foam-restricted pockets of the land portion. You can start to see now why I needed foam. The foam will ensure that the soil and substrate stays either above the waterline or well behind the water feature. Also, the foam and all the substrate will later act like a sort of filter, housing beneficial neutralizing bacteria to support cleaner waters in these lands. Then, as filler substrate, I used ground coconut fiber, which is highly absorbent and a favorite of mine for terrarium making. I had to make sure to press the coconut fibers down to ensure it filled as much of the holes and spaces as possible. The vampire crabs will likely be digging into these areas, so we want to ensure their excavations will hold in place. I then went in to add some driftwood, which also helps make any terrarium look much more natural and attractive. Driftwood pieces like this will also give the crabs shelter as they dig tunnels beneath it and give them landmarks to crawl on. Now it was time to add some embellishments to this new future vampire crab haven. Clumps of sphagnum moss in key areas would be highly water absorbent and provide the crabs with plenty of hiding places. The crabs may even eat the stuff. They also make any terrarium look quite attractive. Check it out. Doesn't that just look sick? Next, it was time to add some fresh water on the land and in the water area. These crabs inhabit fresh water, and unlike many crabs in the aquarium hobby, don't require brackish or salinity in their water. And now that the water was in, there was one last thing to add, which would help everything remain clean. A mini filter would help keep the water circulating and clean. I hung it at one end of the tank. I couldn't wait to plug it in and get the waters moving. I plugged it in, added some water from the top, and like a charm, the filter worked perfectly. Yay! And after an hour and a half of setup, this is what our finished world looked like. AC family, I am pleased to present to you our new island of Vampiron. Vampiron was a lush and beautiful paludarium kingdom of plants, crystal waters, soil, mosses, and driftwood. The perfect haven for a cast of vampire crabs. Now you might notice some additions. First, I added this additional driftwood piece here, which helped diversify the topography of the territories. And if you look at it from a certain angle, is kind of reminiscent of the Cancer symbol of the zodiac. Highly appropriate. Word to my fellow Cancerians out there, and happy birthday soon. Also, I went into my moss springtail stash to harvest patches of moss and springtails to transplant at key areas of the terrarium, particularly in the most wet areas of the territories. Let's hope the moss patches like these areas and continue to thrive and attach to the rock and substrate. As for the springtails, they'll go on to populate the island and consume rotting waste left behind by the crabs. But check out my absolute favorite part of Vampiron, the waters. I just love looking at the water portion of this paludarium. And because I chose white for the gravel area, it gives the water a really clean and distinctive look, separate from the darkened colors of the land. The more I stared at the crystal waters and its rocky shores, the more I felt, hey, if I were a crab, I'd totally love this. It had a calm, much more still water area for chill wading, and as you approached the filter end, the waters became more turbulent. It was like a miniature waterfall, fed by a natural spring, providing clean water to a tropical forest pond. And so, AC family, the time has come to finally introduce the vampire crabs onto the soils and waters of Vampiron Island. Let's do this, AC family. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. I added the first round of crabs, and they instantly hit the ground scurrying. I tried to do this as gently as possible, as I feared they might be delicate. In went the second team, but no, these crabs were not delicate. They were hardy little buggers, and surprisingly easy to direct and transport. Some even leaped enthusiastically from their holding container. And finally, the last round of crabs. And just like that, all the crabs were in. And I had to say, they were so cute! Some crabs immediately began to station themselves, groom themselves, and start picking at random edible bits from the ground to sample their taste. Some crabs ran for the shelter of the shrubs. Some checked out the mosses, while others stood with their legs dipped into the waters. It was so cool to be able to see their unique colors now that they were out in the open and viewable on Vampiron like this. But what I think I loved the most was watching the crabs enjoying the waters. I watched as the crabs sampled both the still end and the turbulent end of the water. Oh, how I'd love to know the feeling of being a crab frolicking along this crystal Vampironian shoreline. Look at him. I also found a strange feeling of satisfaction watching the crabs emerging from the waters onto land. I don't know why, but the sight was just so gratifying. One thing I found real cute was being able to tell where the crabs were by the distinct shape and color of their eyes. They were so profoundly bright orange and were difficult to miss. In fact, the colors and demeanor of the crabs were just adorable. Look at them. Some seemed a bit shy and hid in the shadows at various places. This hilarious guy seemed to be picking stuff off his body and eating it. Gross. Now, although these crabs are communal, I did catch some crabs being extra feisty about claiming a space theirs. Ouch. Some crabs seem to enjoy wall climbing. This one was clearly not afraid of heights. And speaking of being afraid, I initially felt these guys would be extremely flighty and terrified of my presence. But sticking my giant hand around them, it was clear they'd quickly learned I was a friend and not a predator or enemy. Okay, perhaps a nuisance at worst. The whole night, I watched for several hours as the crabs settled in to the island of Vampiron. Even in the early morning hours, after turning off the bright lights, the crabs were totally entertaining to watch do their thing. These crabs are nocturnal in nature, so I knew the bulk of their activities would be happening in darkness, so I watched them. As they continued to crawl over the rocks, plunge into the waters, revel in the refreshing turbulence of the waterfall, trot along the bottom of the pond, hide in various discovered crevices, climb the plants, pick and feed at things along their path, and at times, stare contemplatively out at the expanse of the Antiverse beyond their great new island home. The next morning, the vampire crabs were still quite as active as ever. Though it said these crabs were nocturnal, they still seemed to be pretty active during the day. They were so charming to watch live out their individual lives and go about their business. Now, AC family, you want to hear something really cool? One thing I noticed as I watched the crabs crawling around everywhere was that the crabs seemed to be able to stay pretty moist despite being on dry land. Upon closer inspection, a lot of the crabs seem to be able to carry water in cavities in their mouth area, which they would somehow spread like lotion throughout their body as needed. You see this crab's mouth area? See that pulsating water blob? Well, I found that the crabs would periodically bathe in the water and collect water within their bodies. And my guess was that they would mix it with some mucus to keep the water retention strong enough to be able to carry all that hydration with them on land. That way, the crabs could spend longer periods on dry land, foraging for food, without having to worry about drying out and continually visiting the waters. They carried these packets of water within cavities of their mouth parts as they frolicked around on land. And look, they could even amazingly expel the blobby water and rub it on other parts of their body as needed. Talk about an epic skincare regimen. Alright, now before I get to the big thing I mentioned at the start of this video about what I can no longer unsee, we have to do two things. First, it's time to give this cast of vampire crabs an official name. Leave your name suggestions in the comments, and I will choose my top 5 favorites for us to vote on in a future video. Thank you, AC family, for your input. And, as is AC tradition, when creatures receive a new home, we offer them a housewarming gift. So, I handed them some chopped up superworm. Oh, the cold crab shoulder. Eventually though, the crabs did give the superworm a taste, but they didn't seem as thrilled as I thought they might. Here. Oh? Are you sure you don't want to try this juicy superworm? Eventually, the crab went in to snack on our offering. Yay! But not all the crabs fancied superworm meat and would grab a tiny sample of it, but deem it not worth stopping for. I guess each crab had its own tastes. Some fancying picking at moss, and others grabbing edible bits from the pond floor. I guess I'll leave the scavenging to them, and offer them a good variety of things to sample and feed on. Okay? And now for the thing I can't unsee, AC family. I guarantee you too will not be able to unsee it after I point it out. Tell me what you guys see when you look closely at these crabs. Look carefully now. Wait for it. See it now? They look like moving happy faces with legs. Alright, EC family, was I right? Now you can never look at these vampire crabs the same way again, can you? They're little walking happy faces. So funny. There was still so much more ahead in the Antiverse though, with the other ant kingdoms. So guys, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Smash that subscribe button and bell icon now, so you don't miss out on the real life drama of the inhabitants of the ant room. And don't forget to hit the like button every single time, including now. It would really help a lot. Speaking of ants, it's officially nuptial flight season in the Northern Hemisphere, and a lot of you are catching queen ants now. And in case you didn't know, we've got all the top of the line ant keeping gear for you ant keepers at all levels, from beginner to advanced, as well as a ton of new and exciting products for the ant keeping community, not available anywhere else. So head on over to AntsCanada.com and browse our shop. We ship worldwide and offer full email support if you need us. We also have ant colonies with a queen available in most regions. So go check us out and pick up your ant farm kit and ant gear today. If you're new to the channel and want to catch up on all your AntsCanada lore, feel free to binge watch this complete storyline playlist here, which traces the origins of all the ant colonies of the ant room, so you can follow their stories and better appreciate how these ant kingdoms came to be and why we love them so much. AC Earner Colony, I have left a hidden cookie for you here if you'd like to watch extended play footage of the crabs living in Vampiron. They're just so cute, so go observe them doing their thing to the sounds of relaxing music. And now it's time for the AC question of the week. Last week we asked, what is black water? Congratulations to Mindless Focus, who correctly answered, black water is water stained with the tannins from plants and wood. Congratulations, Mindless Focus! You just won a free ebook handbook from our shop! In this week's AC Question of the Week, we ask, name one of the materials used to build the island of Vampiron. Leave your answer in the comment section, and you could also win a free ebook handbook from our shop. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love forever.